The story began with a young woman named Lucy, played by Scarlett Johansson, living in a foreign city far from home. She was not a fighter. She was not a genius. She was simply someone trying to live a normal life. But one small mistake placed her in the middle of a dangerous situation that she could never escape. Lucy was tricked into delivering a locked briefcase to a powerful crime group. She did not know what was inside, and she did not understand how serious the danger was. The moment she stepped into that building, her life changed forever. The men inside were cold and ruthless. They forced her into a job she never agreed to, becoming a drug carrier. Inside her body, the criminals placed a special chemical known as CPH4. This was not an ordinary drug. It was something designed to push the human brain beyond its natural limits. The criminals believed it would make them rich, but they did not realize they were about to create something far more dangerous than they could ever imagine. At first, Lucy was terrified. She felt trapped, helpless, and alone. The bag of chemical inside her body was meant to stay sealed until she reached her destination. But fate had other plans. During a violent moment, she was kicked hard in the stomach. That single strike broke the bag open, and the chemical began to spread inside her body. What happened next was not instant. It began slowly, very slowly. Lucy started to feel strange changes in her body. Sounds became clearer. Movements around her felt sharper. Her mind began to focus in ways it never had before. It was as if her brain had been asleep her whole life, and now it was waking up. At first, the changes felt confusing, but soon they became powerful. Lucy noticed she could remember every detail around her, every sound, every word, every face. Nothing escaped her memory. Her mind started connecting ideas faster than ever before. Problems that once seemed hard now became simple. It was as if her thoughts were moving at a speed far beyond normal human ability. But the most shocking part was still coming. As more of the chemical spread through her body, Lucy's control over herself began to grow stronger. Fear slowly disappeared. Pain no longer felt the same. Emotions became quiet, replaced by cold and clear thinking. She was no longer reacting like a normal person. She was becoming calm, focused, and unstoppable. This was the moment when Lucy stopped being a victim. She used her new awareness to escape from the criminals who once controlled her. With each passing moment, her mind continued to unlock hidden abilities. She could feel signals in the air. She could sense movements before they happened. The world around her started to slow down, while her thoughts moved faster than ever. And this was only the beginning. Lucy soon realized that the human brain has limits, but those limits can be broken. Scientists had always believed humans use only a small part of their brain. But Lucy was proving something terrifying, that if the brain could be pushed further, the results could change everything we know about life itself. As her abilities grew, Lucy searched for answers. She wanted to understand what was happening inside her mind. She knew she was changing, and she knew the process would not stop. The chemical inside her body was still spreading, still unlocking new parts of her brain, still pushing her toward something unknown. At this stage, Lucy was no longer just a person running from danger. She was becoming something new, something the world had never seen before. And as her brain activity continued to rise, the powers inside her began to move beyond memory and intelligence, toward abilities that seemed almost impossible, abilities that would soon make the entire world fear her, and wonder if humanity had just created its own next stage of evolution. And this was only the start of Lucy's journey. As the chemical continued to spread inside Lucy's body, the changes inside her mind became stronger and more frightening. What began as sharp memory and fast thinking was now turning into something that looked almost like power. Not power in the normal sense, but power over the world itself. Lucy soon discovered that she could control her own body in ways no human ever could. Pain stopped affecting her the way it once did. Her muscles moved with perfect timing. Her senses became so sharp that even the smallest sound felt loud and clear. She could hear conversations happening far away. She could see tiny details that most people would never notice. It was as if her body and brain were working together without any mistakes. But the biggest change came when Lucy realized she could influence things around her without touching them. At first, it happened in small ways. A phone slid across a table without her hands moving. A person standing near her suddenly froze, unable to move, as if their body had lost control. Lucy did not fully understand how she was doing it, but she knew one thing. Her mind was now stronger than her physical body. This was the moment when Lucy stopped thinking like an ordinary human. Her emotions started fading away. Fear, anger, and sadness slowly disappeared. In their place came calm thinking and perfect focus. She began to see life not as a series of feelings, but as patterns, numbers, and systems working together. The more her brain unlocked, the more she understood how the world truly works. Lucy could now read information faster than any computer. Books that once took days to read were finished in seconds. She learned new languages almost instantly. Complex science, mathematics, and technology became simple to her. Knowledge was no longer something she needed to study. It was something she absorbed naturally. And with knowledge came control. Lucy began to experiment with her new abilities. She discovered that she could control electrical signals around her. Lights flickered when she focused. Machines reacted to her presence. Security systems failed without warning. Technology, once created by humans, now obeyed her thoughts. It was no longer just about intelligence. Lucy was gaining control over matter itself. At this stage, the criminals who once controlled her realized their mistake. They understood that Lucy was no longer weak. She was no longer afraid. She was becoming something far beyond their understanding. They tried to hunt her down, believing they could stop her before she became unstoppable. But they were too late. Lucy moved faster than them. She planned every step with perfect accuracy. Every move she made felt calculated, precise, and unstoppable. The hunters slowly became the hunted. What made Lucy even more dangerous was not just her power, but her ability to stay calm while using it. She did not panic. She did not hesitate. Every action she took had a purpose. Every movement was guided by logic. As her brain activity continued to rise, Lucy reached a level where she could sense the flow of time itself. Moments felt slower to her. While the world moved at its normal speed, her thoughts raced far ahead. She could predict actions before they happened. She could react before danger arrived. It was as if she had stepped outside the limits of human time. But deep inside, Lucy knew something else. This transformation was not slowing down. It was speeding up. The percentage of brain activity inside her mind kept rising, moving closer to a number no human had ever reached. And with each increase, new abilities appeared. She could now control groups of people with a single thought. She could stop weapons before they fired. She could block attacks before they even began. The world around her was no longer something she lived in. It was something she controlled. Yet even with all this power, Lucy understood a dark truth. The chemical inside her body would not last forever. Her time was limited. If she wanted to survive, she needed to find a way to complete her transformation before the process destroyed her body. This realization pushed her toward scientists and researchers who might understand what was happening to her brain. She was no longer running for survival. She was running toward evolution. And as Lucy moved closer to unlocking the full power of her mind, the world around her began to change in ways no one could stop. Governments, criminals, and scientists all started to realize that something impossible was happening. A human mind was breaking every known limit. And the closer Lucy moved toward higher brain activity, the more dangerous and powerful she became. As Lucy's brain activity continued to rise, the situation around her became more serious than ever before. What had started as a fight for survival was now turning into a race against time itself. Lucy understood that her body could not hold this power forever. The chemical inside her was still spreading, still unlocking new parts of her brain and pushing her closer to a level no human had ever reached. At this stage, Lucy knew she needed help, not to stop the process, but to understand it. She searched for one person who might have answers. That person was a scientist named Professor Norman, a man who had spent years studying the human brain and its hidden potential. He had once shared theories about how humans use only a small part of their brain, and what might happen if that limit was ever broken. When Lucy finally reached him, the meeting was unlike anything he had ever experienced. Professor Norman expected to see a confused young woman. Instead, he met someone calm, confident, and frighteningly aware. Lucy did not speak like a normal person anymore. Her words were direct, clear, and filled with knowledge that seemed impossible to have learned in such a short time. She explained what was happening inside her body. She told him about the chemical, the rising brain activity, and the powers she was gaining. At first, he struggled to believe her, but Lucy quickly proved the truth. She showed him abilities that science had only imagined. Controlling objects without touching them, reading information instantly, and predicting movements before they happened. Professor Norman realized that he was standing in front of living proof of his own theories. Everything he had studied for years was now happening right in front of him. But along with excitement came fear. He understood that if Lucy reached full brain capacity, the result could be something beyond human understanding. Meanwhile, the criminals who created the chemical were still chasing her. They wanted the remaining supply of CPH4, the powerful substance that had started all of this. To them, it was not about science or survival. It was about money and control. They believed that if they could capture Lucy, they could use her abilities for their own gain. But Lucy was always one step ahead. As her brain percentage climbed higher, her control over reality became even more powerful. She could now see patterns hidden inside everyday life. Traffic lights, moving crowds, digital signals. Everything appeared to her like a connected system. She did not just react to events anymore, she predicted them. Time itself began to feel different. Moments stretched longer in her mind. While others struggled to react, Lucy had already planned her next move. It felt as if she was watching life in slow motion while her thoughts moved at incredible speed. This new awareness gave her the advantage in every situation. However, the rise in brain activity also brought a new danger. Lucy's body was starting to struggle under the pressure. The human body was never designed to handle this level of power. Pain returned in sudden waves. Her muscles shook. Her heartbeat became unstable. It was clear that the transformation was reaching a critical stage. Lucy understood one important truth. If she wanted to survive, she had to keep moving forward. There was no way to turn back. The only path left was to reach 100%. To complete her transformation, Lucy began gathering knowledge at an unbelievable rate. She connected to computers, absorbed massive amounts of data, and learned the secrets of science, physics, and time itself. Libraries, databases, and networks became her source of energy. Every piece of information she collected pushed her closer to understanding the universe. But this search for knowledge also caught the attention of powerful forces. Governments began noticing unusual signals across networks. Strange digital patterns appeared without explanation. Systems shut down without warning. Experts realized that something, or someone, was moving through their technology at impossible speed. Lucy was no longer just a person in the physical world. She was becoming part of the digital world itself. At the same time, Professor Norman stayed close, watching the transformation unfold. He knew he was witnessing something history would never forget. Yet deep inside, he feared the final stage. If Lucy reached full capacity, she might lose her human form completely. And as her brain activity rose higher than ever before, Lucy felt something new. Not fear, not pain, but awareness on a level that no human had ever experienced. She began to understand time, not as seconds or minutes, but as something that could be shaped and controlled. The final stage was approaching, and once Lucy crossed that final limit, nothing in the world would remain the same. As Lucy moved closer to the final stage of her transformation, the world around her felt smaller and slower. Her mind was now operating at a level no human had ever reached. Every second, her brain activity climbed higher, moving toward the impossible number, 100%. At this stage, Lucy was no longer limited by her body alone. She began building something that had never existed before, a system that could store knowledge beyond the limits of the human brain. Working alongside Professor Norman, Lucy started gathering materials and machines to create a powerful supercomputer. This machine was not meant to destroy. It was meant to hold the knowledge she was collecting. Because Lucy understood something very important. Her human body would not survive much longer. The power growing inside her was simply too great. Muscles weakened, skin changed. Her physical form started to break down as the energy inside her continued to rise. But while her body struggled, her mind grew stronger than ever before. Lucy began connecting to machines directly. Wires, screens, and digital systems became part of her thinking process. She could move information from one place to another instantly. Files appeared on screens without anyone touching a keyboard. Data moved like flowing water under her control. Professor Norman watched in shock and silence. He realized that Lucy was no longer just learning. She was evolving. She was moving beyond the human stage of life into something unknown. At the same time, danger was closing in. The criminals who created the chemical finally tracked Lucy's location. Armed men surrounded the building, ready to stop her before she could complete her transformation. They believed that destroying the machines would stop Lucy's power from growing. But they did not understand how far she had already changed. Inside the building, Lucy continued her work calmly. While chaos grew outside, her mind stayed focused. Her brain activity kept rising, 90%, 95%, and closer to the final limit. Gunfire echoed through the halls as the criminals forced their way inside. Professor Norman feared the worst, but Lucy remained still, as if the danger meant nothing to her. Because at this point, Lucy was no longer reacting to fear. She was reacting to knowledge. As her brain percentage crossed into the highest levels, something extraordinary began to happen. Lucy's connection to time became clearer than ever before. She started to see moments from the past, not as memories, but as living scenes. Images of early life on Earth flashed through her mind. The birth of stars, the growth of planets, the beginning of life itself. It was as if her mind had opened a window to the history of the universe. Outside, the final attack reached its peak. The criminals stormed into the main room, weapons ready. But before they could act, Lucy used her abilities to stop them instantly. Their bodies froze, unable to move, as if time itself had paused around them. Meanwhile, the supercomputer continued processing the massive flow of knowledge Lucy had collected. Data filled the system faster than any machine had ever handled before. Lights flashed, screens glowed brighter, the room filled with energy. And then, the final moment arrived. Lucy's brain reached 100%. At that exact second, her physical form began to change completely. Her body slowly broke apart, transforming into pure information and energy. She was no longer flesh and bone. She was becoming something limitless, something that could exist beyond space and time. Professor Norman watched in silence as Lucy disappeared in front of his eyes. The room grew quiet. The noise stopped. The energy faded. For a brief moment, it felt like everything was over. Then suddenly a single message appeared on a nearby screen. Simple, short, chilling. I am everywhere. Those 3 words changed the meaning of everything that had happened. Lucy had not died. She had not failed. She had become something greater. Something that could exist in every place at once. Moments later, Professor Norman received a small device in his hand. A simple storage unit containing all the knowledge Lucy had gathered. It was her final gift to humanity. A sign that her transformation was not meant to destroy the world, but to help it grow. And just like that, Lucy was gone. No body, no trace. Only knowledge, and a message that still echoes today. But here is the question that now returns after all these years. If Lucy became everywhere, does that mean she never truly left? And if whispers about Lucy 2 in 2026 are real, could it mean that Lucy is about to return, not as a human, but as something far more powerful than anyone can imagine? The next chapter may not be about becoming human. It may be about leaving humanity behind forever,